Oh, you want to see some 8-rack action, and boy, is this satisfying. Has anybody ever done this before? I shouldn't have done it. I should have not filmed when I'm doing this because I'm having so much fun just moving this thing around. Anyways, what do we have here? Welcome to 8-rack scam, Vern. You know what I mean, Vern? So what do we have in this? It's a Rainbow Bright. It's the happiest deck I own. So this is the first in the new series of Modern Decks and Deck Tech 2024. So this is a series. If you're new to the channel, we do not do blue here. So this first deck here is one that I've recently done. Not one of my favorites, so caused quite a stir in the local play groups I played it in because it is an 8-rack. And people think 8-rack? Man, we had that like when I was a little kid, kind of. You know, the rack, old card, kind of slow for the modern game. But having played this, we have absolutely found it to be devastating. Now, we do tell people, we're like, hey, when I played anybody, I was like, hey, I got this deck. It's really not fun to play against, but it's really fun to play. And if you want me to play something different, I have a few other ones with me. But if you want to try this, and they'd be like, well, what is it? And I'd say, well, it's an 8-rack, kinda, but it's a scam. And they'd be like, huh, okay, that's kind of interesting. So I'd say, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about our creature base. And this is not a deck tech. There's going to be another video after this. So this is part one. There's part two, which will be the deck tech, and we'll get really into it. This is just showing the deck. So this deck has been appeared on here before a little bit, but this is the 2024 version. So this is how it's going to be. We have Turok the Dreadcanter. It's got the kicker, 2 black, so 4. Protection from white. Whenever an opponent discards a card, put a 1/1 counter on Turok Dreadcanter. When Turok enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, target opponent discards 2 cards. So that's very good because we can discard, after later in the game a little bit. Plus, we put this out and use some of our discard. We're definitely going to get some counters in that department. We have Orcish Bowmaster, so I'm not even going to read the card. We know what this does. I gotta say, I love this card, and I hope the price of it does go down. Because this card, I'd love to see more play. I'd like to see it more across the table. It's just what black needed, in my opinion, is Orcish Bowmasters. It punishes that card draw. Without Orcish Bowmasters, this deck wouldn't work. I will say that. Like, Orcish Bowmasters is one of the huge parts of this deck. So we have Dautai Voidwalker. Because of the discard, and using like a scam ability, we don't want to, Dautai. It's got Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a Void counter. So we're going to be building another hand with their discard. Sacrifice the Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent controls or owns with a Void counter on it. You may play that card this turn without paying its mana cost. That is huge for us because we are essentially building a hand that we can play with our Dautais. And here, get through those. All right, so here's Grief. Now, Grief is an obvious include, but it's not a necessary one. I don't really believe you could put Augur of Skulls in here. I like Grief a little better, but for the price, if you want to do a real budget version, you could forego Grief and just do Augur of Skulls, which I did run in here, but it was just a little slow for me. I just needed that little edge, so I found Augur of Skulls found its way out, but I still have the play set. So we got 4 Grief. Okay, and it's got Menace, it's got Evoke, exile a black card from your hand. Again, not too much experience with Evoke, except over the last few months, and a black card does not mean a swamp. A black card means a black card, a card that can be cast, a black spell card. So, that is evoked, and of course, we run Troll of Khazad-dûm in here. This is a little strange, because you're not necessarily going to hard cast it, but you can swamp cycle it. That's what I like about this right here, is that swamp cycling. So running that, we have Lily of the Veil. 1, 2, 3 of those. Not my favorite artwork. I like the older artwork better, but I like this one. That's kind of nice. We opened that in a pack. I think we got it on camera here too. It was one of the few good cards we opened from Dominaria. Anyways, we got Funeral Charm. Okay, target player discards a card or target creature gets +2, -1 until end of turn, or target creature gains Swamp Walk until end of turn. This one is like one of the first to be sideboarded. if one's going to be sideboarded. Surgical Extraction, love it. Okay, I love that Phyrexian mana. Choose target card in a graveyard other than a basic land card. Search its owner's library or graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. So that player shuffles his or her library. We've got 2 of those. Now that's important because we can see our opponent's hand and know what they have. So if our opponent is playing a burn deck and they have like 2 lightning bolts in hand, we've thought seized one of them, and we want to get rid of the rest of them in burn, which is going to be devastating to our burn player. We can go ahead and do the Extirpate. We can do Surgical Extraction, and we can do that, a few times. So Extirpate is Surgical Extraction with split second, and you have to pay 1 black, but that's just fine. Isn't that a nice foiled version? I'm really happy with that. I love that. Got that for such a good deal too. Fatal Push, just a little bit of creature hate. We got 1 or 2 Fatal Pushes. And, just in case, everybody should know this because this is the best removal spell in black. Destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. Destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less instead of a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So, like in Modern, 2 is like the mid casting cost for most things in Modern. You know what I mean? Very low to the ground format. So, Not Dead After All. Love this card, I didn't like seeing this printed so quickly after a couple other cards like it, but until end of turn, target creature you control gains when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with the Wicked Roll token, which the Wicked Roll gives it 1/1, and when the creature or the aura is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So this has all the upsides of cards like Undying Malice, okay? So it has all the upsides, plus it will do 1 damage. So it is better than Undying Malice, but because this is not Rakdos Scam, we just run the 4 there, and that seems heavy with Malakir Rebirth, which can second as a tap land. So these are just our scam spells. But because it's not a bad thing to scam the Dautai Voidwalker back, we can bring back Turok, because there's just 2 of them between the deck and the sideboard. So Undying Malice, it's okay. And honestly, maybe I'm stubborn, but I just like that artwork a lot. And that 1 damage, honestly, if I was running more scammable things, I would probably go double Not Dead After All. You could do that. Nothing wrong with that. Anyways, I digress. That's what, if I ever have a t-shirt, I'm going to have it printed and it's going to say I digress, because I often do. Thoughtseize, target player reveals his or her hand, choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, you lose 2 life. 1, 2, a 3, a 4. All right, now here is something important. Blackmail. Target player reveals 3 cards from his or her hand, and you choose one of them. That player discards that card. So after we've Thoughtseized, after we've done some things, Blackmail is great because it doesn't say reveal a card and discard a non-land card. It says a card. Reveal 3 cards from his or her hand. You choose one of them. That player discards that card. So between turn 1 and turn 3, if you can get them to have just 3 cards in hand and they got some land, this is devastating. It's a Richard card. And I mean Richard by my name. Not, that I'm a jerk, because I'm not. I'm a sweetheart. Everybody that knows me knows this. So, I'm a sweetheart, but in Magic, I tend to be a Richard. In life, I'm a Richard, but in Magic, I'm a Richard. And a Richard. But Blackmail is a Richard card. And look at that. You know what? I like her. People talk about, cute on artwork. I like her. She looks maniacal. She looks like somebody I'd get along with. Anyways, going forward, we have Inquisition of Kozilek. Target player reveals their hand, choose a non-land card with mana value 3 or less. Remember what I said about Modern being low to the ground? Inquisition of Kozilek is a great underplayed card in Modern because in our format, most of the cards don't cost more than 3. Urza's Saga. Okay, now, I ran 4. Pretty good. All right, it really was. It's a tight ship in this deck. But I'm running 2 now. So Urza's Saga is amazing. This saga is sweet. So add colorless, that's great. Create this. That's not necessarily so important for us, but that's, we don't want to spend our mana that way in this deck. But search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1, put it into the battlefield, and shuffle. This is a very good thing, because this essentially is going to be extra. Not only is it land, but it's going to be a turn 3 guarantee that we get the rack. So 2 of those, okay? Those are enchantments. So those enchantment lands, just 2 of those. Maybe 3, okay? But at this time, I'm just happy with this. Shrieking Affliction. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, he or she loses 3 life. So that is going to be like a extension of the rack. And that is actually very good. In some ways, this is cooler than the rack because it's 1 or fewer, and they're going to lose 3 life. So, if they have 1 card in hand, the rack, they lose 2 life. But with this, with 1 card in hand, they're going to lose 3. But, it's 3 or nothing. So, unlike the rack, which is going to do consistent damage, this one has a bit more of a prerequisite. Running 3 of those. So, here's the rack. Look at that. Stuffy doll. Ain't he awkward? Now, this is like, do you see how this rack works? I was looking at this. It's kind of strange. And me and my buddy were talking. We're like, this is like one of those child safety doors. Do you remember those like kid safe doors where you'd like put them up so the kid couldn't get in the laundry room? Like or like it looks like that. Like it's like a little doll attached to one of those child doors. We may do that in real life, like create a stuffy doll and then open one of those little doors to create the rack. That'd be fun for the channel. If anybody wants to see that, leave it in the comments. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and there's a more traditional rack as it's known to civilization and civilized peoples. Not civilized, just kidding. That was irony, kids. Terrible thing. Anyways, 4 racks. So this one is one we can throw into the, if we want to, it's not unheard of for us to sideboard that rack. That's why it's a little different. Not to mention, sometimes people don't understand the wording of the rack here. So this one's worded a little better, I find. 3 minus the number of cards in his or her hand. So I like the wording of this one better, but I like that white border a lot better because they're easy to find when you're looking for them via the 2 Urza Sagas. And this mana base is really simple. These Locthwains, very good for us. They're going to keep us drawing cards. We're always going to have a swamp. 90% of the time. I don't see us not having one. I've never had that thing enter tapped. So 1 Silent Clearing. Pay 1 life, add a white or a black. But pay 1, sacrifice Silent Clearing, draw a card. I've thought about switching out one of those Locthwains or basic for that, but just haven't. The deck, it's a brutal little simple tool. We don't need to get too crazy with our mana base in this one. I like to keep my real expensive mana bases with a certain type of deck, and this isn't that. So we've got these cool lands, though. Look at that. Pretty snazzy, right? Might be basics, but nothing basic about the way they look, especially that. I just love that. And I actually know of a place that looks just like this. Fortunately, I cannot get there anymore. But look at that. That's not quite a swamp. I don't know. I think that's the Grand Canyon with sticks. Anyways, there's the deck reveal, and we're going to get right off of here and go ahead and we'll call this one done at 15 minutes. So, that's the reveal of the deck. The next video is going to do a more detailed explanation of the things in the deck. And real quick, I'll show you the sideboard. So we have another Extirpate, another Turak, another Fatal Push, and another one. Now, Blood Chief's Thirst is going to destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less. So Wrenn and 6, that's why this is in here. We've got 2 of those. Feed the Swarm, Enchantment Hatred, and Destroy Creature. So I found this handy against Scam. If, sometimes they'd scam it back, but before Fury was banned, I ran like 2 and 3 of these in the deck. Just for that destroy target creature. Collective Brutality. It's a nice little toolbox. Um, Honestly, it doesn't find its way in very often. Pithing Needle, we're running 2 of those. Now, see, if I was running 4 Urza Sagas, you could actually cut this down to where you'd be running 1 Pithing Needle and maybe 1 Damping Spear. But we're not, so we have double the Pithing Needle, and that's just to shut certain things down in the game. So we can shut down obvious things. The Damping Sphere and Knight's Whisper, you draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. Very good card. Love this card, in fact. Just an awesome card. It's perfect for black because it does something that black sometimes has trouble doing, and it does it for a reasonable price. So this is another one of those cards that, like, I think black needed it. Wonderful. And that's the sideboard. So like I said, this is the first video in the 2024 series of Modern Deck Tech. And this is the first one. This is the first deck we're showing on here, because this deck is near and dear to me. I like these kind of underdog things here. So, like, I know we're getting a lot of new traffic to the channel, and I just gotta say again, we don't do things with blue. So when we do things, we're not like stupid and be like, I don't understand how to use the blue. Because I do understand that blue, has its merits and stuff, but the whole point and like the fun of this channel is doing things without blue and trying very hard to do things outside of the box. So as much as we can do things, so satisfying. All right, sorry, yeah, okay, next video coming soon.